This content includes graphic imagery that may not be suitable for young audiences. Content includes gore, aggressive deaths, foul language, nudity, drugs, sexuality, etc. By continuing, you acknowledge that you are responsible for your mental health, and the risk you are taking by watching this content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Before I became a reviewer, before I started uploading stuff to YouTube, I just dwelled on the YouTube site looking at game reviews, movie reviews, let's plays, and it dawned on me, Lisa, why can't you make your own game review? And so, I started my journey of digging into the Earth's core, into the deepest depths of hell, and I finally found a game called House of Velez, in the Devil's Lair, of course, and I ended up getting locked the fuck up in a cell because I made an over an hour-long abomination of a video, which made the devil pissed off, and now, well, apparently, I have to make amends now.
And you can start by remaking the fucking dumpster fire you created over there. Ugh, just fucking disgraceful.
Well, it's not my fault that I was new and inexperienced.
And I am sure that it wasn't your fault for invading my den and stealing my shit, and for making this shit art. Seriously, why does it look so bad?
Oh, come on, at least give me some credit. Do you know how hard it is to draw anything that's remotely good? Besides, how was I even supposed to?
Enough talking. You have reviewed a remake. So, get to it immediately. Now if you will excuse me, I am going to punish some other miserable fuck who needs to get their shit together.
And with that, I'd like to introduce to you the House of Velez Review Remake. Created by Darkroom Games, which is currently owned by one man, who is also the creator of Great Prosperity. If you've been following this creator for a long time now, which you probably haven't since he's so underrated, you would know that his first ever game was called Great Prosperity Carnage.
They are? Oh my days, that's awesome.
Which was made in 2013 or 2012, I really don't know. But then there was a remake of that game called Great Prosperity Redux. Then there was a remake of Great Prosperity Redux, now just called Great Prosperity. But we aren't going to be looking at Great Prosperity today. We're going to be looking at House of Velez, his second game. And unlike Great Prosperity, which is an action-packed game, House of Velez is the complete opposite, offering stealth and slow progression for gamers. So I like to start off the story by saying we've all seen the horror genre one way or the other in our lives, whether it be in video games, movies, music, the stories we've been told at campfires, or art, or books, etc., etc. We're also pretty aware of the many cliches within that genre, such as the bitch that always trips and for some reason can never get the fuck back up, for some odd reason. And this game is no stranger to the haunted house cliche, hence the name House of Velez, nor is the idiot protagonist who investigates without help either, so you can probably already imagine the plot without any specific details mentioned. Lily here, our main protagonist with the short hair and red lipstick, for some unknown reason thought it was a good idea to wear one single sweater shirt with a black leather jacket, not even a bulky one at that, with a short mini denim skirt, with freaking lovely thin black stockings, and I mean thin, with a pair of fucking high heels in 3-inch snow. You know what? Let's just move on. Now don't get me wrong, Lily does have a reason for being here. You know, in a haunted mansion, exploring it by herself, alone. Now the reason Lily is here is because her father, Victor Velez, has disappeared and is being held accountable for scandal in his own company, since he stole a whole fucking artifact for some unexplained reason. I'm guessing it gives him power or some shit. I don't know. I mean, that's really the whole story. It's really nothing much. Lily's just coming to find her father and just save her family home and keep her dad from getting called guilty or some shit. Look, it's not a bad story, but I think it's just basic and vague and not interesting. Now listen, I don't think the story itself is bad, but part, but I just don't think it's enough to really keep people interested. Personally, for me, it's not about the story. It's about how it's portrayed, because there's so many stories that we all heard before, but it's not about the story. It's about how it's portrayed and given to us with the characters. And it's just here in House of Velez, the way it portrays its story is just not the best, especially when you first start off the game. When you first start off the game, you're just listening to Lily just drone on, and there's no cutscene or backflash scene where you're listening to her talk with this big exposition of what's going on. So you're just walking around listening to some lady just drone on. It's probably the worst thing, and it makes it so uninteresting. It just lacks a good hook to keep me interested and wanting to see more. It's just so boring because it's just so underdeveloped. Speaking of underdeveloped, Lily is as bland as a piece of paper as a protagonist. Now don't get me wrong on this one again. There's been plenty of other games that have protagonists that never speak, never talk, and never show any real emotion. And that's fine and dandy if that's what the game is going for. But see, here's the difference with House of Velez. Lily does actually talk. She has a voice, so she does speak. And we see that she cares for her father and that she wants to make it right by her family home, and she does indeed have a motivation in that. But the problem is here is that we don't necessarily have a connection or a bonding with this character, so we don't feel that emotionally, and because of that lack of connection, we don't necessarily want to sympathize with her. I mean, some people can argue and say that Lily does have some character, but not that much when you think about it. I mean, especially when you compare it to other characters that are much more better developed. And she does make a statement about being afraid of dolls, or rather just saying that they're creepy, but the only reason you find this out is by exploring the fucking useless mansion. I'll get to that part later when we actually talk about the gameplay. The only other human we see besides Lily herself is her father, Victor Velez, and he's just as bland, if even more bland than Lily herself. The first time we encounter him, we see him kidnap Lily, put her on a fucking pole, and do some weird surgery on her, I guess. And when you encounter him in the game, he will not hesitate to kill you the minute he spots your dumbass trying to escape.
Fatality.
His appearance consists of wearing a gray outfit, such as a bulky coat and a pair of thick long dress pants with classy black shoes. He has mid-long black hair and a beard, and for some reason Daddy Victor stole Amber's machete. You know, the protagonist of Great Prosperity, who also uses a machete to kill. The only real personality he has is being a sadistic and insane sociopath for a father. How and why he believes killing his own daughter will solve something is never really explained, at least not yet it is. I mean, it's hinted that perhaps the mansion is playing the role of being Lily's personal demon. Basically, it's like Silent Hill 2 all over again. James Sunderland goes to a town. Lily goes to a mansion. James wants to find his deceased wife. Lily wants to find her missing father. They both must face their personal demons in a hellish environment, but the biggest difference between these games is the fact that one is better developed than the other. In order to make my example a bit more clear, let's compare the openings of both of these games. In the opening of Silent Hill 2, contrasted with House of Velez, has far better development, and this is because of the music, the voice acting, and the fucking script and everything involved in it, plus the fact that we are looking at a cutscene. Because of all these details, it really allows us to sympathize with James. It causes the character to play a connection and bonding, and it makes us want to actually see what James is going to do. It makes us curious about how James is going to handle all of this stuff. And that's what makes us really like him. Maybe not like him, but make us a bit more curious about him. And it immediately grabs me into wanting to see more. But Lily, on the other hand, in House of Velez, lacks all of this, which is why the story lacks a good hook. There just isn't good development in it, or rather not enough of it to make players want to continue. And even when you do continue, you're not really feeling the whole bonding with this character. You don't feel like you're having a sympathetic moment with this character.
Could you really be in this town?
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
I got a letter. The name on the envelope said, Mary. My wife's name. It's ridiculous. Couldn't possibly be true. That's what I keep telling myself. A dead person can't write a letter. Mary died of that damn disease 3 years ago. So then, why am I looking for her? Our special place. What could she mean? This whole town was our special place. Does she mean the park on the lake? We spent the whole day there. Just the two of us, staring at the water. Could Mary really be there? Is she really alive? Waiting for me?
I've come back because of a rumor that everyone seems to have disappeared from the area. If they really have left, then I think I may know the reason. Apparently, a couple years ago, a piece of very expensive research went missing from my father's company. Just recently, there have been reports that he's become a prime suspect in the company's ongoing investigation into the case. Oddly enough, not even 24 hours after he's singled out, all his accounts are shut down and nobody can contact him or anybody else in the house. I don't want to think that Dad would steal from his own company, but from the looks of things, that could be the case. Dad started to get a bit extreme when it came to security. The front door key alone won't be enough to get inside. I'll need to use the fingerprint scanner on the door panel as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any power running through the house right now. There's an emergency backup generator in the cellar around back, though. Chance that Dad did actually do something crazy and skip town. If there is anything to find, I want to be the one to find it before the police get here and start taping up the area and calling it a potential crime scene. The lawyers are saying the company will end up taking the house and the property if Dad's found guilty. Seeing that they funded the construction of the estate when my great-grandpa founded the company, they wouldn't be outside their rights to do so. And by taking off like this, Dad has just about proven his own guilt. With any luck, I'll be able to find some clue on their whereabouts while I'm here. Look at that. Home sweet home. I remember when things started to change. It was a little over 2 years ago, just before I left here. Dad and his team led an expedition to the Antarctic. They came across a relic encased in a glacier. It wasn't what they had set out for, but it was what they found. Dad became obsessed with the find and its origins. I have a feeling he may have actually smuggled it out of the lab and back here to the estate. At one point, he became a shut-in and wouldn't allow anyone inside his study. I'm willing to bet that if he did steal that artifact, the proof is going to be upstairs, there in his study.
So with both of those openings being shown, I do however feel like I'm being a bit too harsh on House of Velez. Now listen, I'm not some expectational snob that's like, oh my god, get all of these perfect details in there. No, I'm not like that. I just, for some reason, feel like House of Velez is just a little bit bland. And I think it's because of the lack of development. And because of it, it causes characters to not live up to their full potential. I personally think that if there was more development in the presentation of how this story is going to be told, I think it would have been a bit more interesting. And compared to Silent Hill 2's opening, I think that kind of shows it best for me, rather than me just explaining it. I know it was kind of long showing you the whole footage of both, but I thought it was very important to kind of get my example out there. I do however think that maybe some nice visuals and some music, because that would allow us to feel what is happening. It's one thing to actually know it, but it's another thing to actually feel it. I don't think that the opening was bad, I just don't think it was like the best ever. So overall with the story, I don't think the story is like the best thing about this game. It's just underdeveloped, and because of it, it makes it kind of a bit bland and a bit boring, I guess, for most people. And I can understand why a lot of people would say that this game is kind of boring, because there's just not much being offered to the table, and because of that, it causes us and most people to not really care about this game. I know Dark Room Games said that he wanted this game to be more about the psychological story and rather than the actual gameplay, because the game isn't about the gameplay, it says, but I have to beg the question, why the fuck are you making a game if it's not about the gameplay? I know it seems kind of stupid, but that's the equivalent of saying, okay, I'm making a movie, but it's not about the visuals. Okay, well then why the fuck are you making a movie? I'll talk about the gameplay in one moment. But the thing about it is that I do, however, wish that there was a bit more to the story. And I think it would have been a bit more interesting for most people. But I just think that the lack of development is what caused this to really be bland. And I understand you want a psychological story, but see, here's the thing. What is the message you're trying to say? Because throughout this whole thing, I was asking myself, what is the message? What are you trying to say? What are we learning? What is the lesson in the message itself? What are you trying to tell us? What are we learning about these characters? What are we trying to figure out? We're just completely lost, so we have no idea what the fuck is even happening. We know that basically it's like Silent Hill 2 in its own way, but the thing about it is that what am I learning? What am I trying to figure out? What are you trying to tell me? And this is what the story doesn't give out. And I understand that it's a part 1, but I do think, however, there could have been a bit more information. A bonus about this game is its voice acting. Personally, I don't mind the voice acting. I don't think it's bad, but trust me, I'm not saying that it's the greatest either, but it definitely isn't the worst. I mean, it's subpar at best, and I know some people don't really like it. I don't really mind it, but I know that the dialogue for Sandra Espinosa, I think that's how you say her name. I think she did a pretty good job at voice acting both characters, Lily and Amber, but the dialogue that was given to her, I think, was a bit kind of, especially in House of Velez, was a bit not that great. Because in the opening, you get this long exposition. It looks kind of like this. You have all these words and shit in the very beginning, but then later on, it's like all she's like is, oh my god, what the fuck is that?
What the hell was that?
Oh my god, what happened to Dad?
What the hell is wrong with him? Did he do this to me? He's completely out of his mind.
Oh my god, I have to get out of here. I
have to get out of here. Have to get out of here. Have to get out of here. That mannequin. Is the light keeping it from moving? I can't be near that thing when they go back out. I better get past it quick.
Thing. It's like Lily just talks a little bit too much, and I think that because she never says anything that's interesting, it ultimately makes her boring.
This story is fucking awful.
Well, nobody cares about what you think.
Well, they should. I will have you know that I am quite the creative writer.
Yeah, sure, Satan. Whatever you say. Alright, enough dissecting this story. It's time to talk about something you've all been waiting for. The gameplay. As I stated before, this game is all about the stealth. And does it do a good job at it? No. Not really. So when you start off the game, you think you're going to be playing in like a free movement, third-person type of gameplay, but instead you're greeted with a 2D side-scroller-like mechanic. The controls are pretty simple. You move the analog stick to move either left or right, and forward to enter through doors. The A button is to interact with objects indoors as well. The X button is to run, but you can't do that until after you get kidnapped. So for right now, you're just going to have to deal with Miss Molasses taking her sweet-ass time to get anywhere. You can also hold the B button to sneak, but again, you can't do that until after you've been captured. So the first thing we're going to talk about that you can do in the game is exploring the mansion. And while this is an optional thing that you can choose to do, I highly recommend that you fully ignore that option. It's better to just go upstairs, make a left, keep going left, go to the door, and just get on with the story. I know I said that before, that exploring the mansion is fucking useless. Well, let me explain. When you do explore the mansion, the only thing to do is to interact with stuff. And by that, I mean read what Lily has to say about items. And let me tell you just how much I've learned. I learned that Lily is afraid of dolls, which would explain the mannequin. I learned that the maid likes to do things the old-fashioned way. I also learned that Lily was named Lily because Daddy Victor and Mommy Velez fell in love under the lily tree. Oh dear God, this is so fucking boring. Somebody please just kill me.
Sounds like you've learned quite a lot in your adventure.
Oh, fuck you, Satan. Besides, aren't you supposed to be punishing somebody else by now?
I already took care of the trash, which is why I'm back to check up on you.
Ugh, you might be asking me on these, what is there to find then? Well, there is the shit Tendo. I'm sorry. I mean, the she Tendo.
Holy cow, my old Shinkendo! I haven't seen this thing since I left. 1988 is truly the future of entertainment.
Ah, the old days. Before everything became so advanced. I remember those days so very well.
Now, I don't know if there's an Easter egg for beating this game. I didn't really bother trying to beat it because I got bored after a while just playing it constantly, so I just gave up. In the terms of the environment, the only other thing to see is the mirrors that have been spray painted black, and when you go into your parents' room, you see the TV is on, you can turn it off if you want to, and going into their bathroom, you see some blood splatter with a smash mirror. Look, there ain't shit to find in here, okay? The mansion is empty. There is nothing to find, okay? It's boring and it's vague. Anything that you do find that's remotely interesting, like the fucking shit Tendo, I mean the she Tendo, god damn it, you don't really get anything out of it. Well, at least I don't know that. I don't know if you get anything out of beating that game, but who cares? Everything is so boring because it's just so underdeveloped. There's nothing to find here. There's no secret weapons. There's no secrets. There's nothing interesting that Lily says about any goddamn thing. So it's just boring. It's just a waste, and it's a damn shame too. And I swear, as recording this footage, I swear to God, it felt like a good 10 minutes, at least 5 to 10 minutes exploring the mansion, because Lily walks the pace of a fucking snail. It's just so damn slow. And the mansion is so useless because you never really find anything. You don't pick up any items that would make you solve a puzzle. It's such a shame too, because there could have been secrets, hidden gems, special abilities, you know, all that type of cool stuff. But no, instead we get like a mansion that's only there for decoration. It's kind of sad, honestly. Alright, let's just continue the story before I lose my shit. So when you do continue with the story by going up the stairs, making a left, keep going left, go through the door, you see the article, you go down farther, you see that Daddy Victor's been doing fucking cocaine or some shit, then you go down and see Lily expect the article some more, gets kidnapped, tied up to a pole, and yay, we get fucking QTE. Oh god. Now, I am a bit indifferent about QTE. I don't necessarily hate QTE, but I don't necessarily like it either. I think it's a matter of how the QTE is used, and I feel like here it doesn't really fit in. Okay, let me explain. You know how like you play games like God of War or any combat game for that matter? I feel like QTE works better in games like Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, or I don't know, Blood Rain 2. I feel like those games would fit QTE more because here's the thing, you're already tapping a shitload of buttons just to do multiple attacks, especially in games like Bayonetta. You're constantly tapping the attack button to get combos and do all these move sets and whatnot. So it makes sense to do QTE there because you're already pressing the button. But with a stealth game, I'm not so sure. With stealth games, you're not necessarily meant to tap a bunch of buttons. You're usually just trying to take it slow, take it nice and very slow, so that way you don't get caught. So it seems a bit weird that QTE would be here. Now, I don't know how anybody else feels about the QTE, but this game does have a bit of it in there, and I do kind of think it takes away a little bit because I think that when you're escaping, like, for example, the baby, I think we could have easily just had a mechanic where we had to get the chain off of our leg rather than just tapping a bunch of buttons and pressing them. I feel like it's just a little too simplistic, and sometimes that's a problem with QTE. It can just be a bit too simplistic for some games. Another mechanic of the game is the lockpicking. The lockpicking you only do twice in this game, so it's not really that big of a deal, but for some fucking reason I had a bad time the second time I tried to do it, because you're trying to fucking sneak past this one enemy, and it just took me a whole fucking like minute or something, no, 5 minutes I think, I don't remember, but it took me a good fucking bit before I was actually to get through the fucking door. It was just so irritating. I don't know what it was. My only issue, or at least my only two issues with the lockpicking is that one, it needs to be less sensitive. I feel like the lockpicking is just, or the bobby pin itself, is just way too damn sensitive and it's a pain in the ass. At least with games like Fallout, it was a lot less sensitive because you had to be very specific in trying to unlock the door, and I thought that was great. Here, I think it just needs to be a little bit more toned down so that way I can get the specific spot in unlocking the door. The second problem is that I think that the lockpicking needs a little bit more endurance. I feel like it breaks a little too damn easily, and then what ends up happening is I have to get out of it and try it all over again. Other than that, those are the only two problems I have with the lockpicking. It's not that big of a deal. It's functional. It works. Oh boy, I dreaded actually talking about this one. Oh god, where do I begin? So, you remember how I said this game is about stealth? Well, apparently we have a heart suppression mode. And if there's one thing I'm gonna say about this heart suppression mode is that I absolutely fucking hate it. The heart suppression mode is the only way to sneak past enemies, and it's one of the worst things I have seen, if not probably the second worst, besides that fucking God of War Ascension level. Oh, that was fucking infuriating. So, in order for me to let you feel how this heart suppression mode, get out your controllers, because you're gonna do this with me. Firstly, you're going to press and hold the L2 button to make that bitch crouch down on her one knee. Then what you can do is you're going to press and hold the Y button. You will then see the screen turn gray. And you will also see a circle. What this circle around Lily is her detection meter. If for whatever reason that circle intersects or even just touches any other enemy's circle, you are dead, and I'm sure you don't want that. So the best way to do is also while you're standing, you can also just press and hold the B button like I said before to sneak past them. You will notice that your circle will become lower. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's undetectable, it just means she will be less detectable. And if you run, you'll also notice that your circle will get bigger, meaning that your dumbass will be more detectable. So the best thing to do is to press and hold the L2 button, press and hold the Y button, and then press and hold the B button. Yes, hold down 3 fucking buttons. Then what you'll do is you'll see this meter come out, and you have to press and tap the R2 button in order to keep the arrow in there. Okay, so at first this is the most irritating fucking goddamn thing, because at first it is just so hard to get past. So basically you're trying to fucking literally, and I mean literally, just get the arrow in there. And I swear to God, when I first did this, it was so fucking tiresome because I could not get the arrow to just stay in there. I was tapping the button. I swore the arrow went above the meter and sometimes it went below it. I don't know if it was just me or how I was tapping it, but it was just a pain in the ass. I swear, this arrow just has no rhythm at all. And finally, when I was doing my remake, I finally got used to it. And once I did get used to it, I thought to myself, maybe, because at first when I was playing the game before I started making my review remake, I thought maybe I wouldn't hate it as much. But then as I was doing my review and I had to do it again, I started asking myself, do I really want to play this game? Do I really want to sit here and do this when I start playing part 2 just to see some death scenes? It's just, what I realized is that after you finally get used to tapping the R2 button in a way that you can actually function and actually get past the enemies, Not only does the hard suppression mode become boring after you get used to it, it honestly ruins the potential for a lot of these enemies. I was on his Facebook, Dark Room Games Facebook page, and looking at all the new cool designs that he has for his enemies. And you know what's the sad thing I said to myself? I said, you know, it's a damn shame that they have to go to waste, because honestly, if this is all you're going to be doing for every single enemy, what is the point of all of these enemies having all of these designs? I mean, I thought it would be kind of cool if most of these enemies had like a special attribute. I mean, wouldn't it be cool if the mannequin that you see here was blind and she could sense movement? I think that would really cost for us to have some good strategy for it. Like, think of the game like Manhunt. Some people don't know what Manhunt is, but let me explain. Manhunt is an old PlayStation 2 game, and I never actually beat the game, but that's not important. The thing is that game is about stealth, and I mean complete and utter stealth. So your whole objective is to kill these enemies in a stealthy way without being heard by other enemies, because the minute you get into the fighting, you are fucking screwed. That fighting mechanic was so shit, but see, that's the thing about that game. That was the whole purpose. The whole purpose of that mechanic being so shit was to encourage players to be stealthy and to be more strategic in what they were actually going to do. That's what made Manhunt such a good game. It really made you strategize how to get around your enemies. But with House of Velez, you're not necessarily strategizing anything, because once you learn how to finally do just a simple tapping with every second, you're not really strategizing anything. It's kind of like just working a machine. All you're doing is pulling like a lever at the same time all the time. You're not really like strategizing. You're not using your brain. Stealth is about strategizing, not a simple mechanic. It's a shame that it had to be something as simple as this, but yeah, it kind of does suck.
This is just ridiculous. You've been telling me how much you love this game, and yet you've spent a whole half an hour saying how boring it truly is, in which I wholeheartedly agree. But tell me, how could you possibly like this pathetic attempt at a game?
Well, the same reason everybody else did, and I think I speak for everyone who's played this game already. I think the only good thing and best part about this game is its death scenes, and let me tell you, these fucking death scenes do not hold back.
To discuss. Hold still, live. Slowly but for a moment.
Fatality.
The death scenes in this game are fucking awesome, and a person who loves her gore and her fucking violent shit, let me tell you, this was a fucking blessing. I don't see too many games tackle on like gory death scenes such as this, which is why I like this game so much. It takes risks. I think that's one of the death scenes are the only thing about this game that I think makes it good. Now, is it enough to make this game great? No, it really isn't. But it's enough to just make it kind of fun. But I have to be honest though, for if someone really, if most of you guys aren't really interested in gory death scenes and horrible violence, you probably won't be really interested in this game, and you might just find this game not really suitable for you. But for me, I really liked it, but as I stated before, it's not enough to make this game great. It's just enough to keep it like afloat, which is kind of sad. But to be honest, these death scenes have the most detail I've seen, and that's why I really like it, because there's so much detail and it takes risks with this game. It's one of the big reasons to why I go to indie games more than I do most big branch company games. I feel like a lot of the entertainment industry has become so generic and boring. It's kind of sad, honestly, because indie games for me, and it's not saying that there aren't shit indie games out there, everything has cons, but I feel like the reasoning that I really love a lot of these games is because I get to see the creativity and I get to see them take risks with all this stuff. Unlike games that are like branch off on big companies, and it's not just with games, it's with like most of the entertainment industry, with movies and music, or mostly anything. It's kind of sad that everything has become generic and it never really takes risks. It tries too hard to play it safe. I mean, do I really have to mention the fucking minions from Illumination? Oh god, let's not get into that conversation. But that's just my point. I like this game because it takes risks. I also like the graphics. I do like the graphics a lot, how it resembles an old PS1 type of game. I really do like that. It really plays into the whole atmosphere that it's trying to give out. So I really do like that. But the unfortunate part about it is that the moment you get your first death scene, you immediately know where about a good portion of the work went into. And we all know it was the death scenes. Hell, there was even a fucking comment on one of my old videos that was saying how there was how about 98% of the game was fucking death scenes, or at least the fucking budget went into the death scenes more than the actual game. It's kind of sad, honestly, but it sums up House of Velez perfectly. Honestly, another thing that could really show that House of Velez is really underdeveloped is how short the game is. If you were to do like a speed run of this game and you just skipped everything, you just went on with the story, and if you did the part suppression mode perfectly, honestly, I say you would beat this game. Holy shit, this game is really fucking short now that I think about it. Hell, you might actually beat this game in like 10 minutes or more. Hell, I say at least like under 20 minutes. I say a definite, probably somewhere around a little under 20 minutes. I would say that much. Honestly, it's such a shame too. I don't understand why he bothered calling this a part 1. I understand that a part 1 is supposed to be an introduction, but I just feel like there's so much lacking here. I feel like that this should have been called a demo, because at least with a demo, you're not really expecting much. It's just like a short piece of, like, it's kind of like a taste of the soup. You're just tasting it to get a feel for what you might be getting into, or at least a feel for what this game could become. I don't really understand why he bothered saying that this was a part 1, indicating that it was finished, because everything about this game just doesn't feel finished to me. It feels like there's a lot of things that are missing. Hell, the death scenes have a lot more work into there. And may I remind you that there are 23 death scenes. Yes, I'm dead fucking serious. There is at least 23 death scenes in this one short game. I'm not even fucking joking. It's ridiculous. And I think that just goes to show where he put most of his focus. And I'm not saying the death scenes are bad or anything. You can have great death scenes, but you also have to make sure that, like, your game is getting the attention as well. And it's fortunate that House of Velez just didn't get that type of attention. But nevertheless, we have come to the end of this review, and I really don't want to go any farther than need be. So I will be giving a score verdict. Now, if you're not into score verdicts, you can ignore them, but I decided I would just go ahead and put them on there for people who are just desperate for them, but you can ignore them. Now, I will try my very best to give a fair verdict to the best of my abilities. I'm no professional reviewer, so this is just coming from my honest opinion, but I will try my best to give as much factual, fair scoring as much as I can, but I can't guarantee it's the best one. But for me personally, I would say this game would be like maybe a 4.5 to 5 out of 10. I mean, listen, I want to give it like over average score, but I really can't. There's just so many things that I think just needs a little bit development. It's not something that's like above average, but it's not something that's below it. I just think it's an average game. And I know that sounds weird to word it that way, but that's really the best I can give it. I mean, the overall experience was unique, but the problem with it is, and the biggest problem with it is that it was just very badly and severely underdeveloped. And I dare you to take a shot for every time I say underdeveloped, but I can guarantee you won't survive it. And this is especially true when, like, the death scenes were more focused on. I think if there was more actual time put into the game itself alongside those death scenes, and mind you, 23 death scenes, that's no fucking joke. Like, can you imagine all the time that went into there? You know, it just takes away from the actual game, that I think. And because he focused more on that, the actual game itself had to suffer because of it. I think that you can have these amazing death scenes, but you also have to put like a lot of work into the game also, and not just the death scenes. So I think that's the biggest problem with this. And overall, I personally think the game is great. Some people may disagree with me and find that they're going to say, Anissa, this game is complete and utter shit. I don't know why you like this game. That's fine by you, but for me, I'm excited for part 2, and I hope that everybody else is, because I'm going to get part 2, but I don't know how other people feel about it. Now, again, I really liked it, but those are the main parts of the game that's just lacking. And I think once the game just has more time to develop, because it's not saying that the creator doesn't have the skills to develop this game. It's like a construction worker. Every construction worker has the ability to do these great things. But if you only have one doing all the work or just a few, it's going to take longer. And I think that's just the thing about this game. It just needs more time to develop. And once that time is given to this game to develop, I think it will be a great game, and I think it won't be as mediocre as it is. And like I said, other than that, it's not a terrible game. It's not a great game, but it's a game. It's an average game. And if you want Dark Room games, if you ever start making a new cover for this game, I'll give you like a quote. I'll be doing quotes for each and every game that I review from now on. So if there's one quote that I'm going to give this game, is to say it's a mediocre game with great death scenes. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and maybe you can recommend some other games for me to review. I'd be more than happy to do so. Other than that, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed this review.